Live button, which means we've got to wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plain of the internet. Before we can go ahead and get started, of course, we want to make sure the tubes are working. Sometimes we are just rambling off at the mouth and there's nobody even there. But it looks like it is working today, which is tremendous news. That means we can go ahead and get started. So let's do it, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney broadcasting from the Valley of the Sun deep in downtown Phoenix, Arizona. And today, my friends, we are talking about the fiction that we are learning is also known as January 6th. We've talked about it a lot here, and it is getting worse and worse by the day. Now, we've got a lot to get to. Of course, yesterday we spent a lot of time talking about Tucker and the drop that he gave to all of us. There were these three fictional narratives that we sort of smashed yesterday. One was about Brian Sicknick. They said he was clobbered in the head with a fire extinguisher. They said that he was sprayed to death with chemical irritant. None of that was true. They told us that Josh Hawley was prancing around the congressional building. Turns out that wasn't true either. He was being escorted out, was actually at the back of the pack. We also learned that there was more problems than really we can even keep track of. I'm trying to think what the third one was right now, and I can't even remember it. There's so many of them. I got sidetracked because there's another one today about them maybe adding sound effects to some of the imagery that we saw. So, all right, we talked all about it yesterday. The point is, boy, oh boy, are people upset. The deep state is very angry. We're going to go over to Chuck Schumer. Of course, he is the Senate majority leader. He was demanding yesterday that Tucker be stopped. And Tucker really didn't air much additional video yesterday. So we'll go through that. We've got reaction from Republicans, senators, and Democratic senators. The media went bananas. We've got clips from Cooper. We've got an MSNBC clip of this individual who calls us J6 deniers now, which is fun. Going to have a whole new J6 truth movement. Can't wait for that one. And we have CBS and blasting Tucker because they are sort of mocking him, and Cooper is calling him a big weenie. You can see what I titled that here. You know, Tucker is kind of a girly man. He doesn't really go out there and stand in big puddles like I do, you know, is what Cooper was kind of saying. So we'll talk about that. We've also got McCarthy explaining himself. The media says, how dare you rewrite history, and you're whitewashing all of this crap. And so we're going to listen to McCarthy explain why transparency is a good thing. Karine Jean-Pierre got asked about this. Tucker responded to this yesterday. And of course, he's sort of getting some condemnation for not publishing more video. And we'll get to that when we get to that. So all of that is going to be sort of in the first whopper of a segment. But then we are going to really go through some numbers. And I'm kind of excited about this part here because we're going to try to do some math and addition and some spreadsheeting on the show. But this has been an idea that's been in my head for a long time, and I couldn't really articulate how to get it out on paper. And I think I'm making some progress on it. And so I can't wait to share that with you. But we are going to shatter two different myths about January 6th. One, that it was mostly violent. Okay, that's nonsense. The numbers show it. We don't need to look at the videos. The convictions and the charges show it. And number two, the fiction is that this was a major event. It just wasn't, right? There are very minimal actual felony charges that came out of this. And what I did is I put together a spreadsheet. So this is the official number. These are the numbers that came out from the Justice Department. You see 59 here, 36 here, 284 here. I put it all in a spreadsheet right here. If you're a member, you can grab the links to the spreadsheet. We're going to go through this in detail. All right. All of this stuff. I was spreadsheeting it up this afternoon. That sounds bad. But you can see here, we're going to go through all of this. Is it really a violent offense? Was this really the crime of the century? And so on and so forth. We'll talk about all that in the second segment. So I think this is really important because this is what just shatters the narrative because it's their numbers. We can just show them their numbers are ridiculous. So, all right, we'll get to all of that and more, my friends. And so if you want to be a part of the program, well, the best way to do that is by joining us as a member. The best place is at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And members get extra exclusive content. We get some headlines we go through in the mornings. We do some extra stuff, you know, here and there. We're planning a bunch of additional stuff. I can't wait to turn my attention to that. But it's a great place to be. We've got a private Telegram group. And we have our after parties after the show, our debriefs, and all sorts of stuff. So check it out. Watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Also, if you are a member on YouTube, you can just press join on YouTube. Super easy. You'll get access to the private Telegram group as well. Just navigate over to the post section, and then you'll see where you can click the link to join the Telegram. All right. And so please join us. It's a ton of fun. All right. And the chat is getting burgeoning over there. We've got over 10 people in our Telegram. So it's growing every day. It's very cool. All right. Also want to shout out our sponsors of the show. We've got our friends over at fieldofgreens.com. That's where you can get your real organic superfood. It is delicious. It's your daily servings of fruits and vegetables. It tastes great. You just blend it up. It's super easy to go down. And you can see the vegetables want to be eaten. They're really disappointed that they're not being eaten more of them. You know, I have a whole jar of my Field of Greens here, and they say, Rob, our friends want to be eaten. I say, I know, I'm telling everybody about it. I'm saying, go to fieldofgreens.com, use code Robert, and eat their friends because they want to be eaten. And you'll feel great because it is bursting with green energy. All right. And of course, my former law firm, the R&R Law Group, although I'm no longer with the R&R Law Group, they still are the R&R Law Group, and they're doing great work. And if you know anybody in the state of Arizona who needs help with a criminal charge, send them to the R&R Law Group, 480-787-0394. They are standing by, and they can help. All right. And so, and Bonnie says over on Local, says, I just ate 10 ounces of steamed spinach. See, greens are important, however you get them. All right, so let's get right into it, my friends. The deep state, very angry with Tucker Carlson and the truth about January 6th. Tucker Carlson just happened to be the person who got his hands on it and released it for all of us to see. We've wanted to see it for a long time, been screaming about it. If this was such a horrendous insurrection, well, then why can't we just see what actually happened? I mean, shouldn't we see it from multiple angles? They played the same clips over and over again for 2 years now. Why can't we see the rest of it? Just so we can really see that you didn't selectively pull out what was the worst highlights and leave out the rest of it. And so now Tucker, of course, got his hands on this and started to show us just a little sliver, okay, like 2 minutes of additional footage on repeat. Absolute meltdown all across the country. We've got the media flipping out, Schumer flipping out. We've got senators who are backstabbing Republican people and Republican causes, so-called. And the whole thing is just turned into madness because they do not want this truth to be revealed. This is really what was, I think, kind of the final climactic event for their entire effort to remove Trump from American political life. So we picked up the show yesterday talking about Chuck Schumer, and he gave a 5-minute speech from the floor of the Senate castigating Fox News, saying, Rupert Murdoch, get out there and tell Tucker Carlson to shut his mouth. He's too dangerous. He is rewriting history. He's not allowed to have another opinion in this country. You're not allowed to see the evidence in America anymore. To hell with due process. And said that he should be censored. And I was sort of joking about this yesterday, saying, man, you know, it's Fox News. What are they going to do? It's Tucker Carlson. He's going to come out and release the rest of the footage. Of course, certainly, right? Like, no question about that. It's Tucker Carlson, biggest show in the whole country. He is sort of bigger than anybody else, right? He's kind of immovable in many ways. But then the show came out, right? And there was a little bit less footage than many of us were expecting. Didn't see a whole lot of the additional videos. And just hours before that, Chuck Schumer was saying, do not publish another episode. Don't you dare do it. And even though these people are clowns, even though we joke and lampoon them all the time, they do run the U.S. Congress. They do run the most powerful government in the whole world. And so when they come barking down the neck of Fox News, they're going to buckle. And maybe they did. So we don't hold any of that against Tucker Carlson, of course. But Fox News, come on, guys. We know where they stand. So here is Chuck Schumer after he was on the floor of the Senate screeching and ranting about trying to avoid the truth coming out so that America could just see it. I don't even need Tucker's commentary on top of it. That's okay. I'd rather just see the raw video files, quite frankly. But at least we got something, and they don't even want to give us that sliver. We asked for 41,000 hours. We got another maybe 3 minutes if you cut out all the commentary and just splice together the video. How much was it? Not much. And that was too much for them.
These lies continue tonight. Rupert Murdoch, who has admitted they were lies and said he regretted it, has a special obligation to stop Tucker Carlson from going on tonight, now that he's seen how he has perverted and slimed the truth, and from letting him go on again and again and again.
So he wants, again, to outsource his censorship. You know, he can't do that. If he could just pass a bill and just take Tucker Carlson, round him up from his home in front of his children, like they did with a lot of the pro-life efforts out there, they would do that. He can't do that. So just like the FBI tried to outsource their censorship of Americans to Twitter, and Twitter obliged, they're outsourcing this now to the cable companies. Chuck Schumer's like, holy crap, that's a great idea. Why did I think of this? All I have to do is just go out and ask a private company to censor somebody, and they do it? And Elvis Chan over at the FBI is hanging out with Christopher Wray, and they're like, yeah, for real, bro. No kidding. We do that all the time. Yeah, we sent like 1,000 emails and they just removed everything. So Chuck Schumer says, oh, perfect. I'm going to get out there and I'm going to try that. He's like, I'm going to Fox News ban Tucker. And Fox News evidently did. They're like, oh, well, okay. I guess we're scared of you guys.
Not because their views deserve such opprobrium, but because our democracy depends on it.
Yeah, all right. So the democracy depends on only one side of the conversation moving forward, only one narrative ever making its way to the American public. Very curious. Now, Chuck Schumer was upset about this. We got several minutes of him yesterday and even more time today, but he is not alone. It's very curious why he's being joined by a bunch of other Republicans like Tom Tillis, like Romney, and like others who were saying, yeah, I was here. It was a big, massive insurrection. And I want to just put a pin in all of this right now because we are going to get to this later. But I'm going to explain exactly how many cases were ultimately charged in this and why this was really actually minor. We're talking about 300 felonies, maybe, that were charged. We're going to go through it in more detail. We're talking about maybe 10% of all the cases, about 100 of them being seriously violent. The others were basically throwaway cases. All right. So we'll get to that. We'll get to it all in a minute. It fires me up so much I can't even take it. So they're going to continue with this fake narrative, with this hoax language about what a catastrophe this was, when we have about 1,000 cases in this whole ordeal. Let's listen to Tom Tillis and some of these other hysterics sort of rewrite their own version of history. It's very self-serving for them to be heroes who survived one of the greatest attacks on American democracy, right? It doesn't serve them if it comes out and it turns out they're all a bunch of hysterics. They need this big lie to continue forward. Otherwise, they look like fools. They turn around and they say, oh, you guys were just complaining. Jacob Chansley was an insurrectionist. He was getting toured around the building by the officers. You guys are a bunch of weenies. You know, this was a big, giant joke. And so they have to stick by this. They have to double down on it.
Is just a lie.
I think it's bull. I was down there and I saw maybe a few tourists, a few people who got caught up in things. But when you see police barricades breached, when you see police officers assaulted, all of that, or you had to be in close proximity to it. If you were just a tourist, you should have probably lined up at the visitor center and came in on an orderly basis.
Okay, so he is talking in broad generalities. I think it's BS. We don't know exactly what that is, but we're sort of trying to deconstruct Tucker's argument and what their argument is. I mean, the only real thing that Tucker did was sort of point out that there is more to the story. The select committee selectively clipped out Josh Hawley. They made up an entire narrative about Brian Sicknick. There are so many fictions, it's hard to keep track of them all. They charged Ray Epps, didn't charge Ray Epps. Jacob Chansley was this violent insurrectionist. He was paraded around the congressional building by multiple officers. So what is BS about learning about that other context, about expanding the hula hoop? It just seems like it's fair and proper. We went through the entire sentencing of Jacob Chansley yesterday. Do you think the judge got to see all of that? I doubt it. Now, just so we're clear on this fear-mongering insanity, this is a new senator, I think. And is he a senator or is he a representative? He's a representative. This is a new Democratic representative. His name is Goldman. And he is speculating that what McCarthy did by releasing this new footage is going to be inspiring the next insurrection. That everybody's going to watch this footage, the footage that we watched and shared here on this channel yesterday. And they're going to get ideas for version 2.0, insurrection reborn. Harder, faster, stronger.
Now, Congressman, Speaker McCarthy, as you well know, has released or made available in some nebulous way some 40,000 hours plus of security footage from the Capitol and inside the Capitol on January 6th to Fox News primetime editorialist Tucker Carlson. Are you satisfied that
editorialist? Wasn't he over at Fox News for a long time? Isn't that Garrett something or other? Man, they're a bunch of backstabbers, aren't they?
you know exactly how much has been viewed and the ultimate implications of that viewing process?
No, we Democrats were not consulted on this at all. This was done unilaterally by the Speaker. Who?
Wow, you mean sort of like the unilateral appointment of the Republicans to the select January 6th Select Committee, the fake committee that was illegally constituted, didn't even follow their own rules under H.R. 503 to have the proper formation of both Democrats and Republicans on the same body. Didn't do that. Yeah, Nancy Pelosi just picked Cheney and Kinzinger. So why do you think that you're entitled at all to any cooperation at all? In fact, I have said for a long time that the Republicans should just form their own stupid select committee and literally do anything they want. And the courts really have no precedent to do anything about it because there's precedent saying that if you sued the January 6th Select Committee, they said, sorry, we can't get involved in a separation of powers affair. If the House wants to run their affairs that way, they're free to do that. So we say, okay, well, guess who's in charge of the House now? Like, if this is how the government is going to run, the Republicans can play this game too. I hope they do. I hope we're seeing just the birth of this. It's going to be a ton of fun.
Didn't even consult with the Capitol Police.
That is not true. We saw on the Tucker videos that they blurred out the wall. We had a whole conversation about that yesterday. Why didn't they just release all the footage with all of the redactions? Okay, take your 41,000 hours, redact the walls, redact the things that nobody can see just going through a simple tour visit through the grounds, which is mostly where these people were, the restricted areas and stuff like that. But you don't see all that stuff on the tour. You don't get to do what Jacob Chansley did and go up there and say, hey, I'm in the Senate chamber or anything like that, of course. But the point is, they're going to hide behind this veil of national security. We can't see anything. What about how about 20,000 hours of it? Right? Just give us half the cameras.
About the release of these thousands and thousands of hours of surveillance footage, which, not only will provide a lot of footage, but will also provide a roadmap for anyone who wants to understand what kind of surveillance there is of the Capitol in the event that they want to do something nefarious once again.
Insurrect it again? Oh, no. Insurrection-getting. Trump is back 2024. MAGA murder again. Dun, dun, dun. These people are psychos. And he also doesn't realize that this is not even factually true. Tucker Carlson didn't release thousands of hours. I wish he would have. We're all sitting here waiting for it. Can we get a thumb drive, please? I have an extra hard drive. It's in the closet back there. Can we have that? Can we just get the whole thing? We'll stream it here. We did the math yesterday. We can stream for 6.6 years and cover all 40,000 hours. It'd be a lot of streaming, but it'd be worth it. We'll do it. So, this is fictional because Tucker only actually released 2 minutes, 3 minutes of new footage. Or maybe it's more than that, but it's very condensed. We saw it on a repeat yesterday. But come on, man.
And I think the fact that the Speaker gave this material to the #1 January 6th denier on television, Tucker Carlson, is very noteworthy. I'm not sure whether it's the Speaker's idea or whether this was part of the backroom deal that he had to make in order to get elected Speaker. But it just goes to show how extremist the Republican Party is right now.
Yeah, really extremist for demanding transparency and just wanting to see a little bit more footage. Just a little bit more. It's a bunch of extremism that is now taking over. But he made a couple interesting points here. Let's listen.
Not sure whether it's the Speaker's idea or whether this was part of the backroom deal that he had to make in order to get elected.
The backroom deal, they're trying to smear the messenger, right? They don't like the fact that the evidence is now available. So the person who made the evidence available, it's the shoot the messenger smear, right? They want to go after McCarthy rather than having to defend the evidence. Oh, McCarthy only did this. He's got a prejudiced reason to release this stuff. Of course, it's going to make us look bad. He's so biased. He was promising the extremists of the party that this would come out, and then that is what got him the speakership.
Tucker Carlson is very noteworthy. I'm not sure whether it's the speaker's idea or whether this was part of the backroom deal that he had to make in order to get elected.
All right, so that's the meme. There's also going to be another meme about this roadmap for future attacks. And of course, they're going to continue to freak out about it. Now, we have others. The media also upset. Now, you'll see this. This was another, I think, congressman. There's this interesting phrase that we heard from Representative Goldman, which was J6 denier. You know, we heard election denier, science denier, COVID denier, all sorts of other things. Many of those have been proven to be basically true, you know. So we're back into this conspiracy land. Now, they're really going hard with that phrase. I think typically what happens is they wake up and they get an email. These are your talking points, little robots. Here's what we need you to do. All the Congress people wake up and they go, oh gosh, what time is it? Oh, okay, here's my points. Okay, here's what I have to say. They're scrolling through it. Oh, here it is. J6 denier. Can you say that? And they go, oh, well, yeah, I can figure that out. It's like 3 words. Okay. Okay. So J6 denier. Okay. So here, that is fine. We are going to use that. And we saw that first from Goldman. We also heard that from this person here. We're going to hear that again. And watch how this gets used all around the media. And personally, I am thrilled with this label. Yes, I do deny that this was an insurrection. 100%.
Look, I have no objection to the release of the security footage.
Let's volume this up a little bit. Low recording for whatever reason.
Look, I have no objection to the release of the security footage as long as it's done in a manner that's consistent with security. It's one thing to release it, but it's something else to release it to Tucker Carlson, who's a January 6th denier. There's no one who's been more relentless in downplaying and denying the insurrection against the United States Capitol than Tucker Carlson. And
nobody was charged with insurrection. Insurrection is in the U.S. code. We looked at it this morning on our members only stream. And we also searched for the Capitol Hill cases to see if anybody had been charged with insurrection. Still, nobody has been charged with insurrection at all, which is weird. We have seditious conspiracy charges. We have different assault charges. We have a ton of criminal trespass charges, which are jokes. We have a ton of criminal damage charges, which are jokes. Stuff that you get at Old Town in bars on 6th Street, wherever it is you live, you know, happens thousands of times a year in your city. Nobody throws, nobody cares about it. Happens a few hundred times in Congress. It's an insurrection, the worst thing that's ever happened since the Civil War. But this wasn't an insurrection. Nobody was charged with insurrection. There wasn't this orchestrated plot to take over the government. But they keep saying this phrase. I don't think they know what it means.
as far as I'm concerned, releasing the footage to a January 6th denier like Tucker Carlson is as absurd as appointing Marjorie Taylor Greene to the Homeland Security Committee. So there's a sense in which I feel like I'm living in an alternate reality with Republicans in charge of the House.
Yeah, we know what that feels like. All we're asking for is the video footage. You just said that you were okay with it. Tucker got access to it. And so you're upset that he is, I guess, editorializing it. Would you support, my question to him would be, would you support releasing all of it? Just redact some of the security concerns and release the whole dang hard drive.
You know, and I think there's some new reporting that Marjorie Taylor Greene was pro releasing the tapes to Tucker Carlson. I mean, you make.
Oh my gosh, the condescension! Look at that! Look at that! She's like worse than I am.
Some new reporting that Marjorie Taylor Greene was pro releasing the tapes to Tucker Carlson. I mean, you make such an important and specific point about Tucker Carlson. I mean. Yeah. Ted Cruz agreed with Christopher Wray, who described January 6th as an act of domestic terrorism, until Ted Cruz.
Okay, well, why didn't they charge anybody with domestic terrorism then? Why didn't they? Has anybody been charged with domestic terrorism? Haven't seen that either. We just got a bunch of Antifa people got released on bail bond, 4 hours later or whatever. They got charged with domestic terrorism. Has anybody been charged with domestic terrorism here? The FBI agrees with Ted Cruz? Wow. You're kidding me. Both those people, they hate Trump. They hate MAGA Republicans. They hate that entire wing of the party. They would love them all to be thrown out into the dumpster so that they could inherit it.
showed up on Tucker Carlson's show and in an excruciating interview said, no, that's not what I meant. I mean, why do you think Kevin McCarthy is now participating in this rewriting of the January 6th narrative?
Look, it's all about pandering to Donald Trump.
There
Kevin
it is.
McCarthy was against January 6th denial before he was for it. Fox News was against election denial before it was for it. And it's all about placating the extreme far right, the MAGA Republicans. And it's outrageous. January 6th was one of the worst assaults on the U.S. Capitol in American history. And I remember vividly with my...
Did you see that language change? The worst assaults on the U.S. Capitol. Be mindful of that language, my friends. That's intentional. I don't think this guy's actually a dummy. And, unlike a lot of the other Congress people, he's very careful with his language. And he said it was the worst assault on the Capitol. That is true. It's hard to argue with that. However, he also said insurrection, so he's very careful with his words. He's pretty wrong on the insurrection. He's closer to accurate on that, legally. They kept saying it was the greatest assault on democracy. Remember how often they said that? Hey, undermine democracy. And you go, are you people serious right now? You voted that night, 4 hours later. What are you talking about? You had like a bathroom break for you people. And then you came back in. They didn't even have to do that much security clearance. No anthrax sweep, no chemical sweep, no uranium anywhere. You just walked back in, voted, and it was done that night.
6 was one of the worst assaults on the U.S. Capitol in American history. And I remember vividly, with my third day on the job, members of Congress were brought to secure locations. And I'm concerned that footage could reveal the secret locations to which members of Congress were brought, to which the vice president was brought, to which leadership was brought. It's not something to be taken lightly.
Did you hear that? These two statements are basically the same. It's just unbelievable. They literally get the same talking points. They go out, they just regurgitate it. They are copy and pasters, just like the other journos out there. Goldman came out, this is a roadmap for future attacks. I'm worried there could be another insurrection. You fast forward, same thing. MSNBC, you're both J6 deniers. We're also both concerned about the future of America. All right. Now, they're not alone. Anderson Cooper also is talking to this guy. You remember this guy. Fanoni. Anderson Cooper talking to Michael Fanoni, one of the very heroic January 6th police officers, who has now quit the Capitol Hill Police. And I think he's sort of a CNN correspondent or something. Not sure exactly what his day job is. But this is Anderson Cooper making fun of Tucker.
The idea of Tucker Carlson being in that mob that day and not wetting his pants is hard to imagine.
Wow.
I find it hard to understand somebody who has never put himself in harm's way in any capacity for anyone else or on reporting a story, and yet has the audacity to try to rewrite history. That's what this is. It is an attempt to rewrite history on what is one of the most consequential, certainly one of the biggest events in American democracy and the biggest threats to American democracy.
Yeah, one of the biggest threats to American democracy, a 4-hour riot where they voted back that same night. Weird, yeah. Yeah, and less than 1,000 people charged with crimes. And less than 30% with violent crimes. The rest were just trespass and damage stuff, if that. And he is presuming that Tucker Carlson hasn't done the things that he wishes he had done, and therefore his opinion about January 6th is invalid. Does he know that Tucker Carlson has never done anything to save anybody or to put himself in harm's way or anything like that? I don't know what he wants him to do.
Agree. Tucker Carlson is, by his own admission, an entertainer, not a journalist. And on top of that, he's just proven himself to be Donald Trump's chief propagandist. And that's all this was. And I think that, most Americans recognize that way before this segment aired, that this was propaganda. And it was an attempt by Tucker Carlson to downplay and whitewash the events of January 6th.
propaganda is what they're upset about, when the entire January 6th Select Committee presentation was propaganda. They gave Brian Sicknick a state funeral. He didn't die on January 6th or from January 6th. He died of natural causes. The Capitol Police even admitted that. So you want to talk about propaganda. You want to talk about people who actually don't do anything and fake like they do. It's all astroturf. It's like a stucco facade. It's crumbling all around them, and they are freaking out. They're panicked as can be. You want to talk about propaganda. Remember this guy? Anderson Cooper? Remember these images? CNN, these idiots. He's out, I'm standing in the water over here, hurricane something, I can't believe George Bush, and so we're all going to die, and it's him wading in there, and they're just doing these scenes, right? I guess that's him, risking himself. Or maybe they'll show us another image. He'll be in a bulletproof vest somewhere in the Middle East or whatever it is. But, these people are just really, really petty in many ways. They're really petty. All we're asking for is to see a little bit more of this footage. I'm sure if Tucker Carlson he would have released more of the footage. But as we heard from him, there was a big hurdle for him to even see the footage, right? He couldn't access certain software tools to do indexing or cross-referencing or reverse image searching or identity searching or any of that stuff. Instead, he had to just sort of, rummage through the files, and he did. And he brought to us some amazing details that are helping to crack that facade. But another person in the media, CBS, they're doing the same thing. They're all trying to sort of dogpile on Tucker.
A bit of a fact check this morning after Fox News host Tucker Carlson.
Okay, let me turn that audio booster off there, because that's now a little bit too loud for us.
A bit of a fact check this morning after Fox News host Tucker Carlson aired previously on-scene video of the assault on the Capitol on his show last night. What Carlson did is use selected clips from surveillance tapes provided.
Okay, that's exactly what the January 6th Select Committee did. They used select tapes, selected clips. We covered that yesterday. That Holly clip, that was about a 2-second clip. They forgot the 10 seconds that showed before Holly the rest of the lawmakers going out, right? It was pure propaganda. They were laughing. They were mocking it. They're very upset when Tucker does it. They're okay when their team does it. These people are reprehensible.
To him by House Speaker Kevin McCarthy to claim falsely that journalists and lawmakers lied about the January 6th attack on the Capitol. Scott
did.
McFarland is in Washington. Scott, good morning to you. You've been following this very closely. What stood out to you?
Yeah, Tony, good morning. The narrative last night ignores the tens of thousands of pages of court filings we've read.
And what does that have to do with anything? The filings, they're all very, very much the same. Many of them are being blamed for the entire thing, right? Every single individual J6 defendant is being blamed for the entire thing. We went through Jacob Chansley's sentencing transcript. If you want to look at that, you can. If you want to look at Jacob Chansley's statement of his offense, his factual basis, you can. It's going to show you. They're blaming him for the whole thing. Everything. It was just some guys who showed up. Jacob Chansley showed up in a costume, was extra loud, was extra energetic than the rest of the people, wasn't any extra violent or anything. Sitting in prison still.
The tonnage of footage already released by the Justice Department and shown in open court, and it ignores the powerful and at times tearful accounts of injured officers who are testifying under oath.
All of that was covered by people like you there, Seth, and your entity, CBS Morning News. You guys have been talking about this 24/7 for the last 2+ years. We're kind of tired of it. We'd like to see the full story. That's why Tucker talked about it. So if you put it on a pie chart, his coverage, the truth coverage, the rest of the reality of what happened that day is just a tiny fraction of what we have been able to see. The rest of it has been your propaganda. It's been your time on the video game long enough. Get off the controller. It's your brother's turn.
Carlson called January 6th, quote, mostly peaceful and meek with a small percent that was violent.
We are going to go through that. It was about 10% that was very violent. I ran the numbers today. We have a full spreadsheet coming up on this. It's about 10%. I broke it down into 2 categories. Categories that are technically violent, and then a subset of the tech that the government says was violent. So I think that's, if we're going to be generous, we'll go through it in a minute. But if you want to be ultra generous to the government and give them the benefit of the doubt, it is 30% of all of the crimes were technically legally violent. The ones that were involving a weapon or serious injury was only 10%, right? And we know that other weapons were often called water bottles All right. So just take that for what it is. But if we look at it in a light most favorable to the government, it is small. It is minor. 10%, 1 out of 10 was violent, according to the government.
He showed limited edited footage Monday night on his program that draws an audience of 3.5 million viewers.
Good for Tucker.
And pointed to images.
Are you bitter about that there, Seth? Sucks, huh?
Of a few protesters shuffling through the halls of Congress. But our CBS News review found more than 300 people charged with actually.
Wow, you're 300 people? Oh my gosh, 300 people? That's it? We're going to get to those numbers in a minute. Now, they keep turning that into a big story. My friends, that is a joke, okay? We just had the Super Bowl here in Arizona. I guarantee you we've got 300 extra charges that are not much different than these.
Assaulting police amid the mob and body worn.
I mean, by elements, right? Obviously, they didn't happen at the Capitol building.
On camera like this shows attackers using police officers and damage the Capitol. In the day after the attack, walking through the Capitol,
Brian Sicknick
Carlson saying Sicknick, quote, looked healthy and vigorous. But according to the report from the D.C. chief medical examiner, Officer Sicknick died after suffering 2 strokes.
They are still going with this lie.
His brainstem caused by a blood clot. He collapsed hours after being assaulted by the rioters. His family released a statement to CBS News Monday night saying
they are continuing this big lie. We've talked about this so many times, I can't even take it. Why didn't they reference the Capitol Hill police officer statement, their statement that they posted back in April of 2021 that says that he died of natural causes?
Part on video, Officer Sicknick looks like,
oh my gosh,
he managed to shake off the chemical irritants and resume his duties. His sense of duty sent him back in, and no doubt contributed to his succumbing to his injuries.
What a scam.
The chair of the House January 6th.
Total scam. Brian Sicknick died of 2 strokes to the brain at 9:30 p.m. on January 7th. The coroner, the medical examiner, said no indication that it was related to trauma, related to chemical irritants, bear spray, nothing related to the fire extinguisher, said specifically natural causes. They're still lying about it to their viewers on CBS. Outright lies.
Committee blasted Speaker Kevin McCarthy for giving the footage to Carlson to, quote, spew lies and propaganda. The Speaker defended his decision, saying those tapes belong to the American public. Tony?
They do.
Scott, you've covered this for 2 years. There have been all these court cases that you mentioned. Have legal teams, defendants been given access to video like this? What have you learned from the judicial process, I guess, is the question.
Yeah, Tony, this isn't just the largest criminal investigation in American history. It's potentially one of the most photographed. There are thousands of hours of footage. Some defense attorneys have said it's almost too much. Some of the assault.
No, it's not. It's not too much. I'd like to know what defense attorneys say, what defense attorneys said that. All right, these guys are out of control. This is the worst propaganda you've ever seen, which means that they are freaked out and ultra panicked about January 6th. I mean, they all got their talking points. They're all calling Tucker a weenie. They're all blasting him and perpetuating the big lies even harder and faster than before. Brian Sicknick has been debunked many times. The Capitol Police have even confirmed that, but they don't include that in their reports. So we turn our attention over to Kevin McCarthy. And again, we're going to go through all of this with the numbers here. We're going to just shatter the hell out of this in a minute. But Kevin McCarthy is going to talk about why he decided to release this stuff to Tucker Carlson, and we're glad that he did. The Speaker of the House says transparency still matters in America.
Mr. Speaker, because of the footage that you gave Tucker Carlson last night, he went on and said this was a mostly peaceful chaos, as he said. He downplayed Brian Sicknick's death, said it was not related to January 6th.
It wasn't.
Not an insurrection. Do you regret giving him this footage so he could whitewash the events of that day?
No, I said at the very beginning, transparency. And so what I wanted to produce for everybody is exactly what I said, that people could actually look at it and see what's gone on that day. So.
But why, Mr. Speaker?
Look, each person can come up with their own conclusion, but
what
I just wanted to make sure is I had transparency.
You believe
because I know in CNN, I mean, I had here where you guys actually broke where we were. This was a secret location for McLaren. I don't know if you got concerned by that. I don't even know from a point of view of security if we could ever be taken there again. But when you broke that at CNN, that was a real concern to a lot of people. I had a real concern.
Just shattered that narrative. They're saying, oh, if you release this footage, it's going to cause a security breach and problem for us. And he says, well, that's weird. Why were you reporting on where we were, CNN? You didn't care about our security then, did you?
Also, when I want to make sure transparency, look, the officer's death is tragic. Anytime an officer is passed
Agreed.
in this situation, I want to make sure they're protected. I want to make sure the transparency goes forward.
McCarthy, was this in any way part of the deal that you made to win the speakership? To specifically give the content to
No, the
Tucker?
answer is no. And if you follow, I'm not sure if you were there the times before, I got asked the question in a press, what I would do in the process. I watched on January 6th committee how it was only politically driven. Now, on the January 6th committee, you couldn't have, the minority side wasn't allowed to put people on. And I just thought it was fair if someone asked me the question, just transparency. So what I tried to do is be able to release the information, which we'll do to everybody. I worked with the Capitol Police. I asked them for any clips on the way that they had concern with the security level. Only one of the clips did, and we were able to change that. An interesting thing the Capitol Police told us when we went through this is that January 6th never asked them about that, the security. So that's why they showed, unfortunately, Vice President Pence, when he was being escorted out, they used my office on the escort where he went out. They never asked the Capitol Police if that's showing security clearance that they shouldn't, which they didn't. They didn't ask me as well. I didn't.
This is outstanding from McCarthy. He's basically turning it around on them. You're so petrified about security, huh? You think that what we gave Tucker was problematic? Tucker at least blurred out that one wall in that one clip. It was all run by the Capitol Hill Police. So Dan Goldman and the other liars in the media who say Tucker didn't do that are liars. But we see that Tucker got a sliver of the footage, presented it. They're demanding that it be removed. Kevin McCarthy, good for him, standing firm to this, saying transparency is key, and Americans should have full access to this. And I completely agree with him. So love to see it. Now, I think what was also instructive out of this was he said the J6 committee didn't do that. They didn't go to the Capitol Hill Police and also try to confirm that this was not a security breach. They were playing videos all day. We went through many of the different hearings here on this channel. Listen to Liz Cheney and Kinzinger and Fishing Benny Thompson and all of them day after day with their book reports for the American public, playing video after video and PowerPoint slides, reading from teleprompters like robotic idiots, faking their somber, depressed moods. So McCarthy says they didn't do any of that security clearance stuff. Go talk to them about it if they're so concerned about it. Obviously, the media is just looking for something to latch onto. So the White House got asked about this as well. Hey, Karine Jean-Pierre, she's giving a press briefing. Question for her about this new footage. You know, Tucker released this footage that shows your entire administration and a lot of people associated with you are liars. Do you have anything to say about that, Karine?
Ask you about the footage that was released by Speaker McCarthy. Speaker McCarthy said his decision to release the footage to Tucker Carlson was out of transparency. What is your reaction to that? And does the president want to see Speaker McCarthy release all of the footage broadly to other news outlets and the American people?
Look, I'm not going to speak directly to that at this time. That's something that, that the January 6th committee and clearly the DOJ is dealing with. And so I'm just not going to speak to that. That is something that the speaker needs to answer from his colleagues and to the American people.
Well, let me ask it this way. Does the White House feel the need to set the record straight about the footage that exists and what happened on that day in the wake of the footage that has been released?
Can you say more? Like, what do you
does the White House feel as though basically all of the footage should be released so people can see it within its full context?
So the president believes we need to get to the bottom of what happened on a very dark day in our democracy. The president has been very clear about that. We need to get to the bottom of what occurred. The footage that we have seen, the footage that the American people have seen is devastating. And what we saw was an attack on our Constitution, was an attack on our democracy.
All right, and same story again and again and again. We were attacked and attacked and attacked. Now, it is very tiring to hear her continue to say she doesn't have an opinion on this and can't answer anything and won't answer anything. It is like a broken record over and over again. But you can see now the deep state is in full panic mode. They are getting aggressive. They're sending their talking points out, and everybody is conforming. We saw that from MSNBC, CBS, CNN, from the Senate floor, from the Senate hallways, and elsewhere. And now Tucker Carlson got that yesterday, and he responded to some of this. And so, of course, he is the man at the center of this. So we want to give him an opportunity to respond. And last night he did some of that. Let's check out what he had to say.
On the Senate floor today to explode and to say that showing that video, evidence of wrongdoing by the federal government, including the security forces, the police department that Nancy Pelosi personally controlled, letting the public see any of that is a threat to democracy.
Just to see it.
Last night, millions of Americans tuned in to one of the most shameful hours we have ever seen on cable television.
What a lunatic.
Fox News host Tucker Carlson ran a lengthy segment last night arguing the January 6th Capitol attack was not a violent insurrection. I don't think I've ever seen.
It wasn't an insurrection, and it was mostly nonviolent. So to call it those things is both technically and legally wrong.
Seen a primetime cable news anchor manipulate his viewers the way Mr. Carlson did last night. I don't think I've ever seen an anchor treat the American people and American democracy with such disdain.
There's nothing that shameful that has ever appeared on American television in the history of the medium. And so, on the basis of that, the self-evident outrage of showing the public video that it paid for and has a right to see, Chuck Schumer called for the censorship of that video. Any information
of you, bro.
He did not dispute that it was accurate. The damages a storyline his party constructed and used must be squelched. And Schumer was explicit on that point. Because that video contradicted lies told by the Democratic Party, Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, Chuck Schumer demanded that our bosses pull this show off the air.
Which is absolutely
He's going
insane.
to come back tonight with another segment. Fox News should tell him not to. Fox News, Rupert Murdoch, tell Carlson not to run a second segment of lies. I urge Fox News to order Carlson to cease propagating the big lie on his network and to level with their viewers about the truth behind the efforts to mislead the public.
So I thought the big lie was about the election. Is this also about January 6th? I mean, they're two entirely separate issues. So did they just repurpose the big lie for January 6th? Because I think it's appropriate to call January 6th the big lie, or that it was this insurrection, that it was a mostly violent insurrection. That's totally erroneous. It's not even close. So I think that's the big lie. So I don't know. I think everybody's going to be taking that phrase over for a little while now.
Conduct like theirs is just asking for another January 6th.
Do you hear that? That's where the talking point came from. That's why they said Dan Goldman and the other representatives are saying, oh, yeah, those ultra mega Trumpers are still out there and they're lurking around with their freedom. Be careful, because there could be insurrection 2.0. You never know. What they probably should do is, I don't know, hire a few thousand more FBI agents to investigate the domestic homegrown violent extremism, huh?
To happen.
It's a threat to democracy. Pull him off the air. A couple of obvious observations. You don't often see the Senate Majority Leader openly call for censorship on the floor of the Senate.
Yeah, and I just got to pause on that. I really, you know, as I said yesterday, I know these things are sort of clowny issues, and we can joke about this from time to time, and we can look at Chuck Schumer and say, what a goofball he is, and, you know, this whole system's corrupt, and who cares, and whatever. This is a giant problem in America. The fact that somebody is literally doing this. I mean, I can't tell you how much appreciation I have for Tucker Carlson to be able to come on TV and address this when you have the Speaker of the Senate, the Speaker minority of the Senate, when you have basically the entire government apparatus, FBI, CIA, the whole stinking deep state, literally, is focused on you like a laser beam. And this dude is just like, all right, I'm going to come out here and do a show, and I'm just going to say this, what you're about to hear anyways. There's something to be said. I have so much appreciation for it. I'm so grateful that there are people like this that are willing to stand up, because it gives all of the rest of us some cover.
As if that was totally normal and didn't contradict the spirit and the letter of the First Amendment, but of course it does. But what's really happening here, what you're seeing is hysteria, the overstatement, the crazed hyperbole, the red in the face anger. What is that? Well, it's not outrage. Of course, it's fear. It's panic. Those videos, which we did not retouch, which we brought to you after running everyone by the Capitol Police to make certain that we didn't imperil anybody. We told you that last night. Those videos touch a nerve because they're a threat to the lies that Chuck Schumer has been telling for the last 26 months, and not just Chuck Schumer. We should also tell you that Chuck Schumer, the Senate Majority Leader, was joined in this outrage by the Senate Minority Leader.
Republicans,
that would be a Republican, Mitch McConnell. And they were joined by a cascade of other Republicans, Tom Tillis from North Carolina, Mitt Romney from Utah, all sharing the same outrage. And from this, we learn two things. One, you're getting close to what they really care about. And you have to ask yourself, why? Why is it so important that they would degrade themselves by telling such obvious lies and calling for censorship? Why? What are they trying to protect? That might be worth exploring, and we plan to. And the second thing that we learned from this is that they're on the same side. The Senate Majority Leader joins the Senate Minority Leader. Tom Tillis, Mitt Romney. They're all on the same side. So it's actually not about left and right. It's not about Republican and Democrat. Here you have people with shared interests. The open borders people. The people like Mitch McConnell, who are living in splendor on Chinese money. The people who underneath it all have everything in common, are all aligned against everyone else. And that would include almost all news organizations in this country as well. And so if you're watching this film, it might be kind of interesting to keep a list, because one thing we learned today is that they're all in agreement with each other. They kind of outed themselves. They sort of showed their membership cards and whatever club this is to the public. So keep a list. If you want to know who's actually aligned, despite the illusion of partisanship, we found out today. We have a little more tape for you tonight.
So they are orienting themselves big time against Tucker Carlson, and it is going to be something that I think is not going to let up. I think you're seeing the realignment, Republicans, Democrats, the amount of pressure that is coming down to bear on Fox News, the amount of pressure right now that is coming down to bear upon Tucker Carlson, I can't even imagine. And so I just have to say I'm so grateful and appreciative for him. You know, he's sort of the first one through the door on a lot of these issues, and he holds it open for the rest of us. And so we're grateful for him. So keep our thoughts and energy and prayers out for Tucker as he continues to navigate this, because it is important stuff. Now, we have to destroy the rest of this narrative. And so I want to get right into it. The real January 6 numbers. We've got two fictions we need to destroy today, and we're going to do it using the January 6 government case records, filings, numbers, dispositions, all of the metrics that came from the DOJ themselves. Two things I want to make sure we're clear on. One, it was fictional. The January 6th was mostly violent. The numbers are going to show that. We're going to look at the amount of cases that were disposed of as felonies, as misdemeanors, and so on. We're also going to smash the idea that January 6th was a major event, just in terms of volume. It was actually quite a small event, as we'll take a look at and see. But where are we getting this data from? We're going to go through a spreadsheet in some detail here. You can see I spent some time assembling these numbers. This is what is coming up. I'm going to walk us through it. But first, we have to understand where these numbers came from before they make any sense. And they come directly from the Department of Justice. They posted a 24-month update. They say 24 months since the greatest attack on democracy since the Civil War, right? They say, hey, 24 months have happened. The government continues to investigate all of this. It cost them $2.7 million, so on. They say under continued leadership, we are investigating and compiling the cases. Here's what we have found. So they've been working on this for 2 years. And just to make sure we're understanding this, this is dedicated, I don't know, 8, 9 full select committee hearings. We have national news coverage for basically 2 full years. We've got investigations, hundreds or thousands of DOJ employees all working on this. And here's what they've got after 2 years. And now this might sound like a big number to you. I'm going to show you what a joke this is in a minute. Arrests. More than 950 defendants have been arrested. Okay, that's the top line number. So if you're going to remember any number here, it's 950 defendants have been arrested. More than 284 of those defendants have been charged with assaulting, resisting, or impeding. And that is what we're going to call the sort of the low-level violent crimes. All right, so just you can do the simple math here if you're following along at home. 950 total crimes, 284 of those were so-called violent. Now, within that, there's a subcategory of those 284 crimes. They say 99 of those were deadly or involved a dangerous weapon. All right, so now you can see we just follow the numbers around. 99 individuals who have been charged with a more serious offense. So you can see we have the rest of the numbers here. We have 860 defendants who were charged with remaining on restricted federal building or grounds, 91 defendants with a deadly weapon, and so on, right? This is a big list of numbers. Now, what we're going to do is translate all of these numbers over to this document. And in this document, we're going to see how this all makes sense. Because essentially what they're telling us in this document, in what they release publicly, they're telling us, we have done so much work on this case. This was the worst thing that's ever happened. And look at all of this stuff that we've accomplished. Almost 1,000 prosecutions, over 99 individuals with deadly and dangerous weapons, and so on, right? 50 defendants with conspiracy and 484 individuals have pled guilty. Now, when we just transmute all of this over, when we just take all of this from the government and we try to make sense of it, here is what we find, my friends. Now, for some time, I have been wanting to know what the conclusion of all of the January 6th criminal cases were, because then we can do some really good analysis. We're going to start right now, even though we're only halfway done. You see this chart? Total open cases, we saw were about 950 open cases. And so here, that means about closed were 484. And I sort of reverse engineered that number. So you can see this is what the pie chart looks like. Of all the January 6 cases, we're about halfway through. About half of them are closed, about 50.9% are closed, and 49.1% are open. And I want to pause on this for a moment. The reason they are slow rolling these cases, in my opinion, is because they don't want to get to this conclusion. They don't want us to see what these final numbers are. Because if we do, as you're going to see, they're starting to look really bad for them, right? They know these numbers. They're prosecutors. They've got these numbers in their system somewhere. They know what they're doing. So if we're about halfway through, we should be asking ourselves, man, I'm sure they prosecuted a ton of insurrectionists and seditious conspirators and all sorts of violent criminals and all of that stuff, right? Well, let's take a look at the breakdown. If you translate all of those charges that came over from that other spreadsheet, from the other post, here is what we see for total crimes. If we break up the category into violent, sort of a serious violent crime and a less serious violent crime, we know that there are some that they say have involved weapons or serious injury. The weapons, in some cases, we've seen were water bottles, flagpoles, other things that were kind of ridiculous and not really weapons, but they call them weapons. So we have the low-level assault, anything that is impeding, resisting, assaulting. I think within that, you have a subcategory of the more serious charges. And remember that these numbers are not going to add up to 100 because you can be charged with multiple crimes. So you can be charged with, for example, entering the Capitol. You could enter the Capitol with a weapon and then assault an officer and then charge somebody with assaulting the officer with the weapon that you brought in, right? So like you could have these 4 charges all stacked up back to back. But anyways, this is how they organize them into the different categories. And so you can see basically this is how it breaks down. Now I know this chart probably looks a little bit complicated, but the bulk of these charges, over half of these in this big brown box area, are just simple entering the Capitol charges, right? Just entering the Capitol. It is the massive bulk of all of the charges. 860 crimes out of 950 got charged with entering the Capitol, right? And huge portions of those were just not violent at all. We also had conspiracy, which is a very broad catch-all criminal charge. It basically includes anything. Corruptly obstructing a proceeding, also, right? Basically, these things can stack on top of one another. Like if you enter the Capitol, you're obstructing a proceeding, aren't you? Well, yeah, because you're standing there and they are not doing the proceeding. So they sort of all stack on top of one another. And this is how it breaks down. The big bulk of these, as you can see, is entering the Capitol. Now, in order for this to make sense, we need to just pull out essentially all of the things that are clearly not violent, right? Not violent offenses. And identify the things that are violent, because we want to shatter this myth that this was a massive violent incident. So here we know that we've got 99 that were violent involving a weapon. And we've got 284 that were sort of the broader, lower level violence. And if you put that in a pie chart, my friends, this is what it looks like. So if we give the government the benefit of the doubt and we say, all right, look, we're going to count all the violent crimes, including the subset of the more violent crimes as violent, then it would be 284 cases out of 950 that were actually violent, which would make this 23% of the total crimes violent, right? So that's small. That's at the upper end. It's a fourth. That's if you give them sort of the full leeway, the full benefit, and you say we're going to give them more violent crimes than maybe I think they should get. So if you also think about the lower end of this, and we say we're only going to count the serious injury crimes and the weapons crimes as the violent offenses, that's now 99 out of 950. It's less than 10%. That's the point that Tucker was making. And that's by the DOJ's own numbers, because none of these other crimes are violent crimes. All right, entering the Capitol wasn't a violent crime. Entering the Capitol with a weapon, you're going to presume that they also have the weapon, right? So these numbers are hard to capture because you could be charged with multiple crimes, but these are really the rough numbers. Pay attention that nobody has been charged with insurrection, not a single person, not one insurrection charge ever. So I don't know why they keep saying that. 50 people charged with conspiracy. Obstructing is not violent. Theft of property is not violent. Destruction of government property is not violent. Those are all criminal damage charges, about 6 to 3% of the total criminal charges. And so really the only violent crimes, if you give the government maximum benefit, was at the high end about 23% violence, and on the low end, 9.4% violence. And it's probably dramatically lower than that, because even the weapons that they categorize, even the things they categorize as a weapon, right, were water bottles and flagpoles and things like that. So this number could theoretically be much lower than that, depending on how you wanted to interpret this. We're just taking the default DOJ interpretations. We're just saying, okay, we'll just take whatever you say, and we'll just follow along with that. So it's kind of amazing, isn't it? Really only about 99 people out of 1,000 have been charged with a violent weapon crime, less than 100 people on J6. And if you wanted to say, even broader than that, it's about less than 300. Wow. All right. For one of the worst things that's happened since the Civil War, that doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? Now we carry on. Maybe my numbers are wrong. Maybe this in fact involves a ton of other felonies or other serious crimes. But no, according to the DOJ's own numbers, out of the people who have taken a guilty plea, the people who have resolved their cases, only 119 of them out of the 484 have pled guilty to a felony. Okay, 1/4 of all the cases that have been resolved are felonies. 3/4 are misdemeanors, which are minor compared to a felony. Again, it would be like a criminal trespass at a bar. It would be like refusing to leave after you've been asked to leave. It would be like breaking, a glass or a table or knocking over something at a bar, criminal damage, breaking a machine. 3/4 of these all got pled down into misdemeanors. Only 119 at this point have pled to felonies. Now, the sentences are even harsher because, as you can see, this pie chart should sort of resemble what the penalties, right? If 1/4 of the people are getting felony plea deals, they should get felony penalties, right? And if 3/4 are getting misdemeanor plea deals, they should get misdemeanor penalties, right? But when you go down to the incarceration, you're really only seeing about, you're seeing about 43% of them are in fact getting incarcerated. So, just from rough numbers, you'd like to see that maybe at, if you wanted to correlate incarceration to felonies, that incarceration number should be closer to, let's say, 25% to match this number, but it doesn't. So the incarcerated number feels like it's a lot heavier, and the people who are only getting probation are about 1/3 who are not going to any type of incarceration. 19% are getting home detention after a period of incarceration. So in other words, 3/4 are getting misdemeanor, but only 1/3 are getting probation. This number should be closer to 3/4. So it's absolutely just not even close. It's the plea deals are not bad for the defendants, but the penalties are bad for the defendants. Now, with all of that being said, I know this is a ton of numbers, right? I know we're looking at a number of pie charts and numbers, and typically people's eyes glaze over at this point in time. But the point that I'm trying to make here is this all culminates in about 950 cases, okay? And 950 cases over 2 years for the entire DOJ, the entire FBI, is literally a joke, okay? It's hysterical. And so here's what I wanted to go over. Now, when we add all of this stuff up together, most of these cases are pretty minor cases, as you can see. About 84% or 90% of them are not violent at all. About half of the cases are closed. 400 and something cases have taken plea deals. And so we've got criminal trespass cases. We've got criminal damage cases. We have, kind of like analogs to public nuisance and protest, right? All these different things that are basically minor. So when you are charging somebody with a crime, you have elements of the crime. You have to sort of check the boxes off. So the Capitol Hill trespass is not that much different than an Old Town trespass. It's just in the Capitol building. It's not that different at all. It's pretty much the same elements. Is a person here? Yeah. Are they allowed to be here? No. Okay. Well, then that's the kind of the law there. You kind of broke the law. Now, the J6 cases have one extra element, which is we have an identification component. We have a difficult time identifying everybody because people were flying from all over the country, and there was, sort of an investigatory period where they had to track people down. But that's it. Once they got ID and identification, basically they send a bunch of FBI agents on field trips. Well, why don't you go to Arizona and hang out there for a little bit? You go hunt some insurrectionists while you're out there. And then they go find them and they drag them back. And that's it. They have an ID component and they have the rest of the charges. So every time you hear this complicated, most complicated investigation and all of that, it was Where's Waldo? That's all they were doing. These aren't crimes of the century. Even a DUI case is more complicated than these cases. Ask a government prosecutor about gas chromatography, okay? Ask them about mass spectrometry. Ask them about any of those things and see what happens with their eyeballs. Doesn't work out so well for them. This is just trespass and disorderly conduct stuff. It's like a joke. Okay, so you get the point. Now, all of this, it really is a very minor number of cases, because here's what I want to share with you. I want to show you exactly how this works. The government has turned this into a giant hysterical mess. And according to USA Today, the DOJ back on March 28th, 2022, they requested more prosecutors, okay? 131 more prosecutors for the January 6 cases as the investigation continues, right? 131 prosecutors? Holy crap, for 950 cases? What? That seems like a lot. It's like 10 cases per prosecutor or something? Like what? And then it's more prosecutors. So we have to ask ourselves, how many prosecutors were already working on this? So all of this comes out. They wanted $37 billion. And Lisa Monaco, who really is running the DOJ, she said, regardless of whatever sources we get, let me be very clear. We're going to hold these perpetrators accountable. More than 700 people have been charged and so on. Okay. So now let's add this number into our spreadsheet. We take 131 additional prosecutors. Okay, they're asking for another 131. And we don't know how many prosecutors were already on the case. So let's ask ourselves, how much of a growth would 131 prosecutors be, additional prosecutors? How much would that be? Like a doubling of the prosecutor's office? So let's say it was literally a doubling of the people who were focused on January 6th. So that would mean that would be 100% increase. And that would mean that if the original number of prosecutors was 131 and they added another 131, we would have a total of 262 prosecutors on the case. Now that's being extremely generous, right? I don't think that they added and doubled the size of the team or want to double the size of the team. I think it's probably just like a 25% increase, right? You're just saying, oh, we're going to go add in another 130. So let's say it's a 25% increase of the January 6th team. That means that 131 additional prosecutors would mean that the base layer of prosecutors was about 524 if it was a 25% increase. Okay, we're working backwards here. That's all we got. That means that there's a total of 655 prosecutors that would be working on this case or on the January 6 cases. And that is not that does not sound like an unreasonable number, because remember, the DOJ has 115,000 employees. So would they even dedicate 1% of people to the most egregious attack on American democracy since the Civil War? You have to imagine it's like at least 1%, which would be like 1,500 people, right? So, okay, 655 prosecutors seems like a generous number. It's probably closer to 1,000 or 1,500 on all of these cases. And my friends, when you think about that, when you think about 655 prosecutors for 950 cases, 950 criminal cases, do you understand how insane this is? It's almost a 1-to-1 ratio. In fact, it's a 1.45 ratio just with those numbers. That means that every prosecutor is working on 1.5 cases for 2 years. You see how insane this is? It is insane, because if you take a look at the DOJ manual, then what they'll tell you, if you go through this long document, this was drafted back in December 2007, a census of state court prosecutors and prosecutors in state courts. And they say here that state prosecutors' offices, if you read through all of these numbers, I'll just want to share with you what the average felony prosecution caseload looks like. Yeah. Offices in districts with more than 1 million residents, they close 4,500 felony cases every year. No problem. And prosecutors, in fact, they can also have a caseload of, I think I saved it somewhere. They have a caseload of 94, which is the average. There it is. In 2007, prosecuting attorneys in offices in districts with 100,000 to 250,000 residents, they closed an average of 121 felony cases each. You see that? Every year, 121 a year. The full-time caseload per prosecuting attorney across all full-time offices was 94 felony cases. 94 felony cases. So that is the average volume for a standard prosecutor. 94 felony cases. In this case, according to their requests, according to their convictions, it's 1.45 cases per prosecutor. It's not even close to being anything that is big. If you talk to any prosecutor and you said, hey, we're going to hire you and you're going to work on 1.5 cases every year, they would laugh. Now, this leaves out some parts, right? It does leave out the fact that there's investigations that go into these things. But the point is, the numbers don't add up. There's 950 cases. There's got to be somewhere around 1,000 prosecutors. It's about a 1-to-1 case per prosecutor. It is not the crime of the century at all. In fact, somewhere around 10 to 20% of the cases were actually violent, if you give the government the benefit of the doubt on the violence and sort of look at everything as default violent. So these numbers will just show you. And as more and more of these cases get disposed of, we're going to see, I think, probably these pie charts continue to squeeze up in our favor. The vast majority of these were not violent at all. The vast majority of these were people just walking around the Capitol. Even the charges confirm that. huge portions of the pie chart are entering the Capitol, obstruction, conspiracy, entering the grounds. So whenever you hear them tell you that this is the most complex investigation ever, if it's complicated for the DOJ and their 115,000 employees to prosecute 1,000 cases, we need to get a whole new DOJ. Probably should do that anyways. But it's embarrassing that they can't handle this. Any local city prosecutor's office could handle 950 cases in 2 years. It's a total joke. So I don't know what you see on the TVs. I don't know what all of those rioting people were, apparently, according to this, is about 300 of them were the violent ones. And I don't doubt for a minute that the FBI didn't catch all of them. They have been playing Where's Waldo for the last 2+ years, and they're going to make sure they get every single person. So the fact these numbers are looking so bad for them really shows and illustrates how bad this was for them. They wanted to turn this into the crime of the century. It just isn't, and the numbers confirm. So we'll, of course, continue to cover January 6th. Thank you for joining us as we do. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and we'll look forward to seeing you, my friends, on the next one. All right, my friends. And so that is going to be it for us on the day. We covered some good ground here, man. We hit the numbers, did some deep dives and some of our homework to make sure that we got that recorded for all posterity. We heard from Tucker. We heard from McCarthy. We heard from Cooper and the rest of the deep state, all in ultra panic mode about us just seeing some additional true video. But now, my friends, it is time to hear from you, of course, right after we talk about our friends over at Field of Greens, because Field of Greens is a great company that's going to make you feel great, and you're going to love their product. And, we all would like to lose some of those extra pandemic pounds. And we all know how sick we are of those fad diets and those weight loss pills and all of that stuff. But we have been there and we have done that, and we know that they do not work. But you know what does? Eating 5 healthy servings of fruits and vegetables every day. You do that, and the weight would probably fall right off. But look, vegetables, not a fan, and fruits, who's got time to prepare that stuff every day? Instead, let's talk about Field of Greens. Now, Field of Greens is a science-backed formula, very specific fruits and vegetables that you're not going to find in any other product. Proper nutrition reboots your metabolism so you can burn calories faster way and lose weight healthier. And Field of Greens is the only product that's backed by a better health promise. You're going to look healthier. You're going to feel healthier. But the better news is going to come at your next checkup when your doctor says, wow, you've lost weight. Whatever you're doing, keep it up. And so let's get you started. Very easy. Open up a new tab in your browser. Go on over to fieldofgreens.com. They've got a ton of good stuff there. They have the real organic superfood, Field of Greens. They've got collagen. They've got sleep stuff. They've got exercise stuff. And the vegetables want to be eaten. So go to fieldofgreens.com, use code Robert to save 15% off your first order, and you're going to love their stuff. I love mine. Get your Field of Greens at fieldofgreens.com. All right, my friends. And now let's turn our attention over to you, my friends, and see what you have to say about all of this and more. And I think that Tucker is supposed to have some new footage out tonight. We'll see what gets dropped. But we had some very generous super chats and I think some memberships. So Zulu, hey, thank you, Zulu. Zulu gifted 5 memberships. And I think there was another one. But Zulu, so Zulu invited, thank you, Zulu. Zulu's super generous here. And Zulu invited 5 members to our YouTube membership, which is awesome because we do morning member only exclusive streams. And we did one this morning, and our YouTube member chat is getting lively, which is a ton of fun. We're grateful for that. So thank you to Zulu. And we've got He's Dead Jim, Garrett Pace. We got Kraken McBubbles over there. Angie Kernius and Hangman 420 all got invited courtesy of Zulu. Thank you very much for that, Zulu. And don't forget to grab the Telegram link. We have a private Telegram link in the community post tab. So grab that and join us because the live chat will go on and on and on again. All right. And so from our friends on YouTube, Chris Wolney says McCarthy gave it to Tucker to keep it in the partisan politics, do nothing loop. He should have made it public or gave it to someone like Matt Taibbi. Yeah, I would like sort of both. I kind of want everything to happen. I would like Tucker to get it and then us to get it, or us to get it and then Tucker to comment on it. but I want it out. I really am I would be okay either way, as long as we got it all. Either release it all so we could comment on it, or give it to Tucker and then release it to all of us. But they're really making a big deal about the security concern. I mean, Tucker, when he explained what he was doing, they said he had to go into a secure facility and they couldn't copy anything, and there were all these legal disclosures, and it was a tall order. But I mean, I agree with you, Chris. I would really like to see the internet get their hands on it, or somebody like Matt Taibbi. But Tucker does a good job too. I mean, I think he did a good job. IB says, and thanks, Chris. IB says all they can ever do is project, shaking my head. They do a lot of that. Zulu says, why doesn't McCarthy just go ahead and show the video independently? I think it's security, Zulu. I mean, I think that's what it is. I don't know, though. I would like to see it independently. Like I said, I'm not joking about it. I'd like to see all 41,000 hours just dropped out there. Go redact it. They already got to do it for the January 6th defendants, so just make an extra copy, put it on a BitTorrent for all I care. Just put it out there. But thanks, Zulu. Yeah, I mean, maybe he will at some point. I think that would eliminate a lot of his criticism. He's getting criticism for giving it to Tucker. So just say, okay, fine. I won't give it to Tucker. Here you go, America. Here it is. Go to j6fakehoax.com.gov and get your hard drive file. Good to see you, Zulu. Fred is here. He says, Rob, I came home. Oh my gosh, Johnny. He says, Rob, I came home and I couldn't find Johnny. Oh no, my friends. I went into the basement and he was in a huddle with Ray Epps, Chuck Schumer, and Mitch McConnell. Help! Oh gosh. They're plotting big time. You know who's in trouble? Somebody better send a message to Tucker Carlson. I don't think Tucker Carlson knows about Johnny. Yikes. Ray Epps involved now too. And we already know that he got off Epstein Islands and other things. So this could be bad. Tucker's in big trouble. I wouldn't mess with Johnny. I mean, we sort of poke fun at the FBI and the CIA and all that stuff, but Johnny's the real deal. Good luck over there. All right. What do we have here? We have a TWR patriarchy. Yeah. Okay. Says, Robert, what was the sham guy charged with? He got 4 years for doing nothing. Oh, the QAnon shaman. Yeah, Jacob Chansley. Yeah, he got with all those same charges, criminal trespass. We went through. Let me see if I have his statement of the offense handy, because we just literally talked about it yesterday. Yeah, I do. It's right here. Yeah, this is the official thing that he got charged with. 2 counts, obstruction of an official proceeding. That's what he got charged with, right? A tour. Walking around the Capitol. 2 counts in the indictment. Count 2, elements of the offense: obstructed a congressional proceeding, statement of facts, right? They made him he was responsible for all of this, all of the Capitol riots, all the picketing, 216, 219. He goes in, right, and the whole thing. So that's what they got him on. But it was good to see there. What happened to my screen? That was from TWR. Yeah, that's what he got 4 years for parading around the Capitol building. All right, my friends, that was from our friends on YouTube. And thank you for the support over there, my friends. And I really appreciate it. And I think we had some new members come in, which we'll see if we can get to in a short minute. But all right, I also want to say hello to our Rumble friends, because we're getting some good activity in the Rumble chat, which is super cool. And I'm grateful for everybody over there. And man, big Rumble news. Holy moly. Crowder's going over to Rumble. That's good news. Good news. A rising tide lifts all boats. I'm happy. It's going to be a big anchor, a big draw. It's going to be good for a lot of people. It's going to be good for a lot of content creators on Rumble. Not so good for YouTube, though. All right, so let's see who is on Rumble. We got 1R5 says, grandmas and working stiffs cheerfully waving American flags and chanting USA. The horror. I know. That's from 1R5. Yeah. The worst thing in the world. But if you go do it in a Wisconsin place with pink hats on, then it's suddenly like you're heroic, you know. If you torch police precincts in the name of social justice, Kamala Harris will bail you out. No, it was, and again, 80 to 90% of the crimes were of this variety. The numbers themselves say it. Good to see you on R5. Thanks for being here. We got Dog Diggers in the house. Jan Axe here. Nick Danger's here. Army Brat. Some Buzzy Ann says, what's wrong with his face? I don't know. I don't know which one you were talking about. Hopefully not mine. But we had some others in the chat. Let's see who else we had here. Oh, hey, yeah. Eric Scorpio says, thank you. Numbers don't lie. Yeah, did you guys appreciate the numbers? The numbers, like, I know they kind of glaze like eyes over it. I'm not really good with numbers or explaining the numbers, but I think it makes just total obvious sense, right? I mean, it's clear. Less than 1,000 cases with hundreds of prosecutors. It's nonsense. Ask any practicing lawyer, a felony caseload of 90, that's perfectly reasonable. 1R5 says, well over 1 million in attendance is what triggered the left. A chart that includes them would be interesting. So 1R5 is saying that I guess maybe the chart, and thank you for another one, 1R5. I really appreciate you, my friend. Says that, yeah, so like a pie chart of okay, I see what you're saying. Like include the million of people who were there that were not charged with crimes. And I forgot to mention this point too. Like I had some other questions about this too. As I was assembling these numbers, I was saying, look, why don't they tell us how many cases they dismissed that were charged and dismissed? How many cases were dismissed based on identification because they got the wrong person? How many cases are still pending that have not been charged yet? Right? How many unidentified people are still out there? How many people got non-prosecution agreements? How many people got charged and then the charges were withdrawn because they were feds or connected to some other federal agent? How many? Any of them? I don't know, right? They're just showing us what they want us to see, but there's a whole other portion of an investigation. I mean, they're doing, they have pre-filing cases all over the place. Which of those are making it? What are the standards that turn it from an investigation into a prosecution? I don't know. I don't know why they're doing it, but it's a giant fake thing, guys. It's hundreds or thousands of prosecutors for 1,000 cases. It's a joke. Like Arizona had a Super Bowl here. We probably have an extra 1,000 cases that came through because of the Super Bowl and the Waste Management Open. Literally, we probably have an extra 1,000 felonies that came through here. And Maricopa County will absorb it like that. Not even a problem. Not even bat an eye about it. And it's one county in Arizona. They have the entire FBI, the DOJ, Capitol Hill Police setting up agencies all over the place. It's a joke. And for 950 cases, less than 300 of them were actually violent. Okay, 284 if you're being generous were actually violent of less than 1,000. So it's basically a myth is what it is. It's kind of they turned it into this big thing and it's really not. And there were a couple violent, there were 300 violent offenses. Yeah, it's not good. Don't want that to happen, of course. But definitely not the crime of the century. So good to see you on R5. I appreciate that, my friend. Yep, Dog says it was a setup. How is Tucker getting away with his comments, says Comfort Systems? No idea. Sedona says, love the pie charts. Cool. All right. And those are our friends over on Rumble. And so if you're not already subscribed to Rumble, hopefully you head on over there and join, because there's going to be a lot of, exclusive. We're not exclusive yet on Rumble, but maybe one day. There are others who certainly are. So shout out to all of our Rumble friends. All right. And we also had some amazing tips come in from our friends over on Locals. And of course, we're going over to Locals for our after party, which is where we will hang out for a little bit. But let's see what we've got over here while we're still here, to say thank you to our Locals friends. Of course, we're going to also jump over to Twitter in a quick second. Zoji sent a tip. Thank you, Zoji. Says, hip, hip, hooray. Thank you, Zoji. Hip, hip, hooray indeed. We are in the house. Good to see you, my friend. Coleman Free says, I'm curious what the J6 attorneys are up to this week. Are there any filings since the footage release? This is a great question, Coleman Free. And I was literally thinking about this afternoon. Okay. I was thinking, is Jacob Chansley's lawyer filing a petition for post-conviction relief right now? Is he drafting that away? Is he typing typing away? Whoa. Does he know? Has he seen that footage? I don't know. But I was thinking about that specifically because I think Jacob Chansley is housed here in Arizona if I'm not mistaken. And I was thinking hard about that. If they're not filing a petition for post-conviction relief, well, why not? And is there any opportunity to do that type of a conversation? So I don't know what they're doing, but yeah, I'm sure a lot of them are digging through their files as we speak. Again, I don't know if they had that footage. I don't know if they saw that. I don't know if they made those arguments, were allowed to make those arguments, if we were allowed to see that, because all of that stuff was under protective order, which was just crazy. But a great question from Calm and Free. Don't be hating. Says, beautiful charts, Rob, even if agents were behind it and involved in planning for many months. Well, thank you, Don't Be Hating. I worked hard on those charts, man. I got tunnel vision this afternoon. I was just charting it up. I get a little bit, spreadsheet OCD from time to time. But thanks, Don't Be Hating. I appreciate you joining up and supporting us over on YouTube, on Locals here. John Allen is here. 2 messages. Hey, thank you, John. He says, okay, Rob, part 1. I grew up in this country. I grew up so proud in this country. I truly thought in general it cared about people, their rights and liberties, and that it wanted to be a beacon of hope for the world. Now I see it's all a lie. Not sure when it started exactly, but it definitely creeped in long ago when the majority still believed what I believed. I'm absolutely flabbergasted and devastated at what this country has allowed to happen. Each day weighs heavy on my heart. I do what I can. Let me scroll this down here. It says, each day weighs heavy in my heart. I do what I can to try to keep the dream of what the USA was meant to be, but I'm not, what is going on here? Why can't I see this? But I'm not sure how much good my efforts are accomplishing. The liberal communists have placed themselves into key areas that allow them to get away with crimes that decades ago would have been at least been outed by the media. Now what to do besides being disheartened by what has become of this country and to try to teach the truth wherever possible? Question mark. And John Allen says, even Hunter's crack dealer agrees. Yeah. So yes. So we also have Hunter's crack dealer, who is a member of our community, which we're very blessed to have. Very nice honor to have Hunter's crack dealer join us. But and he agrees with John Allen's comments. But John, I can understand your sentiment, man. I agree that there have been some serious changes. I would say that my worldview has changed dramatically. For me, I would pinpoint it back to COVID. I was sort of shocked at how rapidly everybody abandoned principles and values for safety and security. I was shocked by it. I was shocked by people in my life and how they acted and how they operated, and how how fearful people were and how quickly they were to just abandon everything. I was pretty shocked by it. In fact, this show was birthed out of that era. So I can understand that. Now, that being said, freedom is going to prevail, John. We have 2 things on our side. 3 things. 1, the long arc of history. We have the fight for freedom, which prevails every time. These megalomaniac, dictatorial totalitarians, they pop up and they all crumble every time because they're the weight of their incompetency, the weight of their ego and their God complex, it always comes crumbling down upon them. It just happens time and time again. So we've got the arc of history, we've got freedom, and you know what else we've got that they don't have? God. We've got God on our side. So don't worry about that. We're going to be all right. We do have to keep persevering. We can't just keep, we can't just sit around and be lazy. We've got to build new informational supply chains. We've got to build communities. We've got to connect. We've got to wake other people up and pound the table about this stuff and have some fun. And I think we're going to be okay, John. But I appreciate you being here, man. I feel like you feel sometimes. I really do. I feel, sometimes I wake up and I go, what the heck is going on out here? And I feel it, man. I feel it too. But I think, I stay energized by you. Many of you energize me, and sort of the work that we do here energizes me. And I think that we've got a lot of people who are waking up. I mean, look what's happening in this last few months. We've got a lot of eyeballs paying attention to this stuff. So John says, thanks for the reminder, for reminding all of us. And thank you, John. Yeah, John, and I appreciate you sharing it. Often if you're feeling it, you're not alone. Other people are feeling it. And so thank you for sharing that with us so that we could comment on it, because it is, it is something that we feel. And I'm often trying to figure out ways, that I can keep myself energized and motivated, because I got, we're just getting started here, baby. And we got to make sure we're playing the long game. I know a lot of people get burnt out in this space and they sort of, I'm just going to go do something else because I can't take it anymore. And I really believe in the work that we're doing. And I think there's going to be a lot more work to do. And so we got to make sure that, we take care of our minds and take care of our bodies. So thanks, John, for that. Words Mean Things sent in another tip over on Locals, and thank you, Words Mean Things. Says, one wonders if Schumer and his ilk felt the same way about Woodward and Bernstein in the 1970s. They were journalists who were rewriting the administration's narrative, and they brought down a president in the process. If they had been censored, Nixon wouldn't have had to resign. It was real journalists doing their job that made things happen. Yeah, and it's strange. It's like, why wouldn't they want to do those things? Why wouldn't they want to be a part of that era and making that happen? It's strange. But those were our great friends over on Locals. Of course, we are going over to Locals in here in just a short minute for our after party. We've got more comments to attend to and other things. However, let's take a look at what's going on Twitter, see if we have any fun comments over there. We love to support the free speech. Holy moly, we got 5 viewers over here. 7 viewers. Whoa, this is out of control. Did Elon do something? Did he turn a switch on for us or something over there? I'm not so sure. Paul Minot, he says, hey, Rob, since you've been unemployed recently. Yeah, thanks for bringing it up, Paul. Says, I notice you've been engaging more online. Don't forget to check your postings every once in a while. Keep up the good work and good humor. I'm in lurker mode today. Have fun. That's from our friend Paul. And he's just sort of poking it over from the window. What are you guys doing in there? What's going on in there? All right. That's okay. I'm in mostly lurker mode. But yeah, I'm going to try to start posting more on Twitter. I've got to figure that out. I'm not real sure what I'm doing over there, but I got to start posting more because it looks like fun. So I have to figure it out. Shout out to Paul Minot, of course. He's at Sleepy Dog Lee on Twitter. He's one of our major meme smithers, and we're very grateful for our friend Paul. We got James Pepper. He says, in order for the press to debunk Fox, they had to see all the video in order to cut their video. So they are outright lying, but everyone can see in their own eyes what happened. Yeah, that is true. Zena's here from Cheers from Florida. Oh, what is this? Like a nice glass of Chardonnay or something? Oh, that's nice. Cheers from Florida. I can tell it's Florida because of the condensation on the outside of the glass. See that there? We don't really have that in Arizona. Basically, liquid evaporates within about 30 seconds if you don't drink it quickly here, at least in July. Not right now, but in July. But it's good to see you there, Zena, and cheers to you, my friend. We've got Barbara May says, I love spreadsheets. Me too. I love all sorts of spreadsheets. Guess who's tuning into Fox tonight after 2 years, says Les. Good to see you, Les. Yeah, and we'll see what they have. I'm going to check out what Carlson has too. Tucker Carlson was embedded in Iraq during Operation Iraqi Freedom. Is that true? Is that Tucker? He was embedded in Iraq? Okay, so they're just dunking on each other over there. And Danny says the pen is mightier than the sword. No, what good is the pen without the sword? Yeah, it's good to have both of them. Here we go. Is Elon dunking on Schumer? Speaker McCarthy has held the gavel for less than 3 months, but he's spreading the big lie. And Elon said, do you want us to remove this video? Wow. Yeah, so Elon is shining the spotlight on that as well. All right, so those are the great comments from our friends over on Twitter. And thank you for following us over there and for following other individuals who are watching the show so we can connect with each other outside of the program on our Twitter feed. But that, my friends, is it for us on the day. And so we are going to leave it right there. We, of course, are going over to our after party. And so if you are a member or a supporter, certainly stick around. Grab the Telegram link if you're a member on YouTube and join us. We're going to hang out for another little bit. And if you're on Locals, hang tight. Join us at watchingthewatchers.locals.com or clicking the join button on YouTube. Also, don't forget to get your superfood, your real organic superfood at fieldofgreens.com. Save 15% with code Robert and eat your vegetables. They're good for you. Vitamins, nutrients, nutritions, fruits, all the good things. Also want to shout out my former law firm. Of course, I'm no longer at the R&R Law Group, but they are still there, still helping good people charged with crimes find safety, clarity, and hope. And they're available online at rrlawaz.com. Also want to shout out the mods and the meme smiths of the program, our friend VNT Prime, K Bean in the house, Just Cause. We've got Playing Hooky, Ronnie Cole, Zulu, Geomancy Games, who's on YouTube, Zach Nichols, and John Allen mod down the forts for us. We've got our meme smiths, Sleepy Dog Lee, Paul Mino, and Geegum Geegum over on Locals. But that, my friends, is it for us on the day. We are going over to our debrief, an after party for our members only. I hope to see you there, but if not, we will be back here to do it all again, and I hope to see you there so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Have a tremendous evening, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.